So I just finished playing the latest Doom and I have to admit it's a really good game. Although I'm not surprised it caused a lot of controversy. Changing it into completely retro style is a pretty bold move that I really respect. They even give level selection like in old Mario games. Oh, sorry, that was a wrong game. This is the new Doom. Let's see how good it is.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Hi, it's me, your favorite internet boy. Guys, I'm just gonna say it right away. Doom The Dark Ages is the biggest disappointment of this year so far. And that's a shame really, because the trailers look really good. And I was excited for it to come out. I really like Doom 2016 and unfortunately it's the only Doom I like. Because Doom Eternal isn't my thing. I don't like how platforming and fast paced it is. But I won't judge it here because I only played it for like 3 hours. In any case, it was a drastic departure from Doom 2016 and I just wanted the next part to be a return to that style. In first previews and trials it looked exactly like that. Slower pace of a game, weapons upgrades, collecting power-ups, free exploration of the map with a few changes like expanded melee combat, the ability to deflect some enemy attacks with a shield, and addition of mechs and dragon, which seems like an interesting change to the gameplay, a nice break from constantly shooting demons. Well, it didn't quite turn out the way I expected. But since I'm a very positive person, let's start with the positives. Some of the maps look good. Sort of. The boss fights are really good, if you can get to them, but more on that later. What else? Oh, the weapons sounds good. Guys, I'm trying, okay? Now that we have the pros out of the way, let's move to the cons of this game. But before we do that, let's first establish what we are dealing with here, because this game is not Doom. If you look closely at most of the weapons on practically every location you visit, they don't look like they are from Doom, but from another game. Which one? Let's see who Doom Dark Ages really is. Just as I thought, it's just a poor imitation of Painkiller. Why turn Doom into a painkiller when you already have one? It's called Quake. You have Quake. Why you didn't just make a new Quake? I'm afraid we will never know the answer to that. Oh, I'm sorry. This isn't just a cheap copy of Painkiller. This is a cheap copy of Painkiller with a color-based parry system where enemies shoot different color projectiles and you have to block them or bounce them back to the attacker. In any case, Painkiller with the parry system doesn't sound like a bad idea, at least on paper. And on paper are the keywords because the execution is terrible. Let's start with the most important thing in every Doom, the gunplay. Or actually, before we get to that, it's worth mentioning something completely different. Namely, when you open this game, you will see a ton of options where you can change and adjust literally every aspect of the game. Well, except the one that you are looking for. Because for some reason you can't change the most basic option, which is the game language. Additionally, you can't even change the game language from the application, because for some reason Microsoft doesn't offer such an option. So to run this game in English, I had to, and I'm not kidding, change the language of the entire Windows to English. Like, what the fuck? Why is that in games made by small studios with much smaller budgets, or even by studio of few people, hell, even in games made by one person with no budget, I can change the game language in the game options. But in huge AAA game made by a huge corporation with a massive budget, I can't? Are you fucking kidding me? I would also like to apologize for the quality of this gameplay I recorded, but it's not my fault, because this game is not compatible with OBS for some reason. This is possibly the first game in my life that is not compatible with screen recording program. I don't know how they did it, but it's a really impressive achievement. Okay, what was I talking about? Gunplay. It sucks. ID Software somehow managed to fuck up gunplay in Doom. This is actually impressive. When I play a game called Doom, all I want to is shoot demons in the face. The problem is that shooting demons in the face is the least effective way to kill them in this game. Because you see, shooting in this game is not the main mechanic, but an addition to the main mechanic, which is pressing the appropriate button depending on the color that appears on the screen. To put it in simpler terms, remember the quick time events that appeared in older games, for example in Far Cry 3 during boss fights. This is practically just that, but spread over the entire game. When you see red, you have to press the appropriate button. When you see green, you have to press appropriate button. When you see purple, you need to press the appropriate button. Out of ammo, press the appropriate button. Enemy with shields, press the appropriate button, because otherwise you can't kill them. You can shoot them with everything you have, but you won't do any damage to them unless you press the fucking button, which instantly kills them. Speaking of weapons, in this game you get a really big arsenal of a good sounding weapons. But what's the point if they don't do any damage, except for one weapon, which is a super shotgun? So you have a choice. Either you shoot half of the ammo at one enemy, or you kill him with one shot. What do you choose? And really the best weapon that you will be using exclusively throughout the entire game is not the super shotgun, but your shield. In fact, your shield is so essential that you have to spam it non-stop to kill enemies. I mentioned earlier that this game has color-based parry system. It boils down to the fact that the enemies shoot at you with huge slow projectiles that take up half of the screen in two different colors, red and green. You have to block the red ones and reflect the green ones. Reflecting the projectiles is crucial because this is the only way to deal critical damage to enemies and stun them. So pretty much all of the fights comes down to running after those green balls like an idiot to bounce them off. Avoiding these attacks is literally impossible because most of the enemies' range attacks take up half of the screen, and the ones that don't take up half of the screen are drawn towards you as if you are a literal bullet magnet. It also doesn't help that you are constantly fighting a lot of rage enemies, and add to that the enemies that are constantly charging at you and spamming melee attacks, so the whole fight turns into a total mess where most of the time you have no idea what's happening on the screen and you literally have to spam your shields and super shotgun to kill them as quickly as possible. But if you think that this game is incredibly difficult because of that, I will have to disappoint you. Because in this game it's practically impossible to die. Your shield blocks literally all attacks and resets very quickly. But even if you don't use it and just tank damage, you still won't die, because if your life drops to a 5 points, you become immortal for about 10 seconds and all demons drop health packs when killed. The only time where I died was when my shields bugged and I couldn't use it, leaving me completely defenseless against enemy attacks, which lead me to the most anticlimactic death screens I ever seen, where the game asked me if I want to use my extra life to revive me. I don't really know how to comment on this, so let's just move on. The enemy design also leaves much to be desired. In theory there are a lot of different enemy types, but since you fight each one the same way, in practice we can disguise only 3 types of enemies. Regular demons who die from farting in their direction and serves only as walking ammo and life packs. Large demons who charge or shoot red and green attack at you, which you have to deflect, because otherwise they become bullet sponges, unless you use a super shotgun of course. And shield demons who are resistant to all weapons, and the only way to kill them is throwing shield at them. So if you thought that you only have to use super shotgun at the big demons and you could just shoot the rest with other weapons, no, you can't, because there are tons of enemies with shields in this game. So the only sensible playstyle is throwing your shields at the enemy like an idiot, and if he stops on something bigger, blasting it with a super shotgun. Everything else is less effective than this. That's truly amazing design. The enemy IE is non-existent. The big demons charge at you and that's it, and the rest just stands there and wait for you to kill them with one throw of your shield. In Doom 2016, even the most basic demon, the Imp, is dangerous. He jumps around the area and throws fireballs at you, and if you don't look in his direction, he sneaks up on you and attacks you from behind. And here we have a group of enemies just standing there doing nothing and waiting politely to kill them with one throw of your shield. It looks like this game was made not to be played, but to be used to record some cool killing shots and post them on TikTok. In addition, this game has practically no gore elements. When you shoot a demon and kill it, its body immediately disappears with no blood whatsoever, and glory kills have been almost completely cut out. Since I'm already comparing this game to Doom 2016, well, here you go. there are also mini-bosses in this game, and they are just regular enemies only turned into bullet sponges. And Commander, who are again buffed regular enemies, except that you cannot kill them until you lower the bar under their life bar. And to do that, you need to kill their minions. So basically you have to run around this guy like an idiot and kill other demons until you get his bar down. And when you kill him, you get a life, armor or ammo power up. I know there is a terrible shortage of talent in game development, and companies are being forced to hire McDonald's employees to help them make games, but putting them in design position isn't a very good idea. So the main gameplay loop, which is shooting demons, sucks. But don't worry, because that's not all this game has to offer. The developers, in order to avoid monotony, gives us a lot of different gameplay sequences, which are supposed to artificially prolong, to be break from a walking and shooting demons. Because who would want to only walk and shoot demons in a game called Doom? That sounds boring. And what's best is that all these sections are somehow even worse than main gameplay. We have sections where you take control of a mountain turret and stand in one place and press one button to kill hordes of demons, and every now and then you press another button to shoot a super missile or something. Amazing. We also have a mech section where you spam one button to fill a circle on the enemy, and when you fill it, you press another button to kill them. And later we get a weapon that doesn't do any damage unless you dodge an enemy attack. That's the gayest shit I ever seen. It's like the developers are trying to make sure that you don't accidentally start having fun. And then we have the most interesting thing from the trailer, the dragon. Every now and then you have to ride a dragon to destroy demon ships or something like that. The controls are terribly simplified, but what surprised me the most was that you only have one attack, which is a regular cannon. So I thought it would be a totally mindless arcade shooter, but what they came up with is even more mind-blowing. It turns out that this gun doesn't do any damage unless you dodge enemy green attack. So the entire gameplay of this dragon comes down to flying around an empty map looking for an enemy ship, then dodging the red attacks of their turrets and waiting for the green attack to appear, and then after dodging it, shooting at them, which usually one-shots them.
But wait! There's more!
Since this game loves to waste your time, you can't just destroy this ship from the outside. You have to land on this ship, which happens with this ultra epic animation. Developers were so proud of this animation that it plays every time you land your dragon on the ground. Even if you specifically fly to the landing spot to skip this animation, the dragon will move back just for that animation to play. Developers simply can't wrap their minds around the idea that someone would not want to watch their incredibly fantastic, overly long animation. So they didn't even give you an option to skip it. Great. Once you land, you have to kill the same few enemies that you fight through the entire game, and then charge with your shield at something that blows up the ship, and somehow the explosion doesn't do anything to you, but don't think about it too much. Then you repeat the exact same thing 5 times and the mission is over. This is the most boring thing in this entire game. I have no idea if they hired the guy who designed the D&D sequences in Goodbye Volcano High, or if they came up with it by themselves. But every time the game announced that I would have to fly a dragon in the next round, I wanted to stop playing. But the absolute worst gameplay element in this game isn't the dragon. It's the tutorials. Whenever you pick up any new weapon, the game pauses and shows you a tutorial on how the weapons work. Apparently the game's creators think every player is an idiot who thinks a fork is meant to be plugged into a high voltage socket. Because not only these tutorials completely pause your game and appear on the half of the screen at literally every turn, but to skip them you can't just press space. You have to press and hold space. And if they have 2 pages, you have to first switch to the next page and then press and hold space to turn it off, which completely kills the pace of this game. But that's not the best thing they come up with, because if you get a weapon that gives you a new ability, not only does a tutorial come up that pauses the game, but when you turn it off, you are locked in a small arena where you have to use that ability 3 or 5 times or the game won't let you out. and will just keep spawning demons forever. I'm sorry, but is this game made for a complete retard or something? Well, that explains everything. So now all Microsoft games will be made this way. Great! Nothing makes me want to buy a product like the fact that its producer thinks I am a moron. As I mentioned before, the only good gameplay element in this game are the boss fights, which are really well designed and makes great use of the game's parry system. This is also the only time where the difficulty levels spikes up and the game starts to get a bit more challenging, as you have to learn the patterns of the boss attacks in order to defeat them. This is also the only part of the game where I actually had fun. But it's a shame that there are literally only 2 bosses in the entire game and both of them are at the very end. So if you want to fight them, you have to grind your way through the entire game to finally get to them, which totally neglects this plus. Exploration is also a huge downgrade from Doom 2016, which had a tons of well-hidden secrets throughout each level, where you could find various power-ups, levers from classic games, and also could unlock new weapons much earlier in the game. In Doom Dark Ages, it's hard to even call secrets because they're not really secret. The game literally shows you where they are, but the path to them is usually blocked, so you have to run around the map like a complete idiot, looking for some glowing thing that you can destroy, which unlocks the passage. And that's pretty much it. The game literally leads you by hand everywhere and doesn't let you think for yourself. Remember how in Doom 2016 to proceed you have to find a key that opens a door, and to do that you have to search around the area or follow a demon hologram to find it. There are also locked doors in this Doom, but if you are afraid you might not find the key, don't worry, because developers have placed this huge icon that shows you exactly where it is, so you don't accidentally miss it. Luckily, you don't have to look up for them, because the only thing these secrets contain is currency that looks like it was ripped from a mobile game, which you can use to upgrade your guns that you will never use. Or you can find extra lives that you will never use either, because it's almost impossible to die in this game. And if by some miracle you do, the save points are very generously placed. The exploration in this game is done so lazily that there is no point in even exploring. So it's better to just ignore this part of the game completely. Level design is also pretty bad. As I mentioned earlier, the maps looks pretty good and are interesting, but what's the point where each level is basically an empty area where the missions mainly involve switching 3 buttons or destroying 4 objects located on that map. So you just run around these empty maps like an idiot and fight hordes of demons, switch a button which will spawn another horde of demons, and when you've done everything, the doors to the next level will open, where you will do exactly the same thing. Additionally, everything feels very gamey. You can only climb market walls. You can only break barricades with a specific symbol on them. Friendly NPCs are completely static and they don't react to your actions in any way, which makes this world feel fake and interesting to explore. It doesn't help that one of the most important things that Doom is known for is also garbage. I'm talking about music, of course. At best, it's the most generic metal I've ever heard. At worst, it's just some random drum and bass sounds that are occasionally interrupted by some guitar sound that can hardly be described as music. Actually, the music in this Doom is so bad I couldn't believe my ears, so I decided to do some research on who they hired to replace Mike Gordon. It turns out they didn't hire any metal musician, but a company that makes soundtracks for games called Finishing Move Inc. And this company made soundtrack to such great games like Callisto Protocol, Borderlands 3, Crackdown 3, Microsoft Flying Simulator. So that pretty much explains everything, especially Microsoft Flying Simulator. They probably had some kind of contract with Microsoft, and Microsoft thought that this would be a great idea to hire them to make music for Doom. I don't even know how to comment on this. To make this thing even more fun, there is an artist called Andromeda who made his life goal to fix these soundtracks. And he's doing a pretty good job, but dude, please stop. This game doesn't deserve this. But don't worry if you are afraid that the crappy music will completely destroy your audiophile sensitive ears, because most of the time you won't even be able to hear it, because the audio design in this game sucks. It's hard to me to even explain it, but everything that should sound loud, like enemy sounds or gunshots, is quiet. And on the other hand, all the sounds that should be subtle, like picking up a weapon, are loud for some reason. Add to that shitty metal soundtrack in the background and you get complete chaos of sounds that often makes me miss enemies because I have no idea they were standing there. Okay, but what about the story? Doom 2016 had a pretty decent story. Very simplistic, but it worked. Plus, everything was presented from the first person without any cutscenes, which really built up immersion. But now you will think that this is such an old-fashioned approach. Immersion, it's 2025, and it's just a video game. Who needs immersion? Who even cares about immersion? At least that's what the developers thought, if they thought at all. Because in this Doom, there is cutscene after cutscene after cutscene in cutscene with cutscene that is interrupted by cutscene. You go through a door, cutscene. You open a passage, cutscene. You finish off enemy, cutscene. You take down a boss, cutscene. Okay, so is the story at least any good? I think the answer is pretty obvious. The story in this game can be described as completely random events that make no sense, that take place in completely random places that don't matter, with characters that you don't give a shit about. But I will try to summarize it to show you what I mean. Spoiler alert if you care, but you shouldn't. So there is this guy and this strong independent woman who are being attacked by demons. And there is this guy who controls the Slayer and helps people defeat the demons. But there is also this demon priest who wants to get the Heart of Origin, but he can't find it. And then it turns out that the Heart of Origin is actually this strong independent woman, and she is the key to everything. So the demon prince asks this guy to betray humans, and this guy is like, okay. And then he betrays humans, and they kidnap the strong independent woman, and the Slayer dies, and then rams the gate of hell, which resurrects him, and then he kills this guy and the demon prince. The end. Do I have to comment on this? I don't think so. In conclusion, Doom the Dark Ages is a complete letdown, and maybe even the biggest letdown of 2025. I was really excited for this game. I even put it on my list of the most anticipated games of this year. Unfortunately, it turns out that even such an easy win, which is a game where you walk and shoot demons in the face, it's too hard to achieve for AAA game studio. So if you want a game that offers a similar experience to Doom 2016, I recommend playing the Prodeus. It's not as good and has a few issues, but it's still a better experience than this game. And if you are in the mood for a Quake-like game, I highly recommend playing Dusk. It's basically a modernized Quake with a great level design, wonderful secrets, great music and gameplay, and pretty decent story. It's definitely worth your money and time more than this new Doom. Once again, indie games shows AAA developers how it's supposed to be done. Doom the Dark Ages gets a 3 out of 10. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.